doing today this afternoon? Hello, my name is Richard Gullah, and I am president of the New Hampshire State Employees Association, SEIU Local 1984. Thank you. During the New Hampshire primary, my local endorsed Senator Sanders for the same reasons that, like Bernie, we now support Hillary Clinton. Because Hillary and Bernie will work together to get incomes rising, increase the minimum wage, and support workers' rights to organize. For all of us who recognize we need an economy that works for all of us, not just those at the top. There is so much more that unites us together than divides us. And the stakes are too high to waver now. We have to double down and work even harder than we have in other years to overcome and elect Hillary Clinton president. The voice of workers in this country is at stake. Donald Trump has spent his life exploiting the working people of this country, enriching himself while laying workers off and stiffing contractors. Who is right? He is a menace to our economy, and we cannot stand by idly and tactfully and allow him to walk into the White House. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton know that it is the American worker who is the backbone of our country's economy, and why we must follow in his footsteps, as my local is, and do everything we can to make sure Hillary Clinton is the next president of the United States and not Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome Senator Sanders here today. I am proud to stand with him in his fight to elect Hillary Clinton the next president of the United
Beautiful Labor Day. Rich, thank you very much for your introduction, and thank you for what you and your union are doing to make our country stronger and more responsive to the needs of working people. And before I go further on this Labor Day, let us all remember that the middle class of this country was in fact created by the struggles of the American labor movement. And in these tough times for the labor movement, it is absolutely imperative that we pass legislation which makes it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. Let me also briefly thank the people of New Hampshire for the support that you gave me during my campaign. What the victory here in New Hampshire enabled us to do is, despite just the enormous opposition, we were able to mount a 50-state campaign, win 1,900 pledged delegates, and raise issues throughout this country that had to be raised. And that's what you did. What we showed America is that the middle class of this country is prepared to stand up to the 1% and demand an economy that works for our parents, our children, and the middle class of this country. And the ideas that all of us together brought forth have transformed the political discussion in America. A few years ago, if I were before you and I said, you know, I believe in a $15 an hour minimum wage, you would have said, well, Bernie, that's a great idea, but you're crazy. It's too high. You want to double the minimum wage, more than double it. Well, you know what? we are going to pass a $15 an hour minimum wage. And a few years ago, if somebody would have suggested we need to invest $1 trillion to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our roads and our bridges and our water systems and our wastewater plants and our rail system and our airports, people would say, you're thinking too big, too much. But people now understand we need to create millions of decent paying jobs in this country, and the best and most efficient way to do it is to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. And people now, because of all of our efforts, understand that there is something fairly crazy when the United States of America is the not only industrialized country, but almost any country on earth that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave. Think about it. You got a lot of folks around here, a lot of Republicans, they talk about family values. Tell me about the woman who is giving birth today in New Hampshire and Vermont or any place else and has to go back to work in 2 or 3 weeks because she doesn't have enough money to stay home and take care of her baby. That is not a family value. That is the opposite of a family value. We're going to pass paid family and medical leave. You know what else? I think there is growing consciousness that there is something immoral and unsustainable about the level of income and wealth inequality that exists in this country today. You don't have to be Pope Francis to understand this. But there is something wrong when the top 1% in this world owns more wealth than the bottom 99%. And there's something wrong in our own country when the top 1/10 of 1% now owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%. So we say loudly and clearly, and I know I speak for Secretary Clinton as well as my own views, that yes, the wealthiest people and the largest corporations are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. You know, if you can believe this, just want you to think about this for a second. All of you know 2 important facts. Number 1, we are much better off today economically than we were before President Obama took office. All right, there's no debate about that. You'll have to be a very partisan and blind Republican not to accept the fact that when Bush left office, and I know there are 1 or 2 of them, but when Bush left office, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. We were running up a $1.4 trillion deficit, largest in history, and the world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. Do we have problems today? Absolutely. But no sane person will deny that we're better off than we were 8 years ago. But, and here is the big but, we cannot, somehow when I say big but, it doesn't come out exactly the way I meant it. It's not quite poetic, but what it means is we also have to be honest and know that there is a reason why so many people are angry in America today. And the reason that they're angry is that they are hurting. In New Hampshire, in Vermont, you got thousands and tens of thousands of people who are working 50 or 60 hours a week in order to earn enough money to take care of their families. They're working 2 or 3 jobs despite the fact that worker productivity is going up and technology is exploding. In the last 16 years, listen to this, since 2000, there has been an increase in the number of billionaires in this country tenfold. You got that? In 2000, there were 51 billionaires in America. That's a lot. Today, there are over 500 billionaires. At the same time as we have the highest level of childhood poverty of any major country, and the middle class continues to decline. What our struggle is about is to create an economy that works for all of us and not just the billionaire class. And together, what our campaign was about was thinking big, not small, and asking very simple questions, which I want to ask you right now. Why does it happen that the United States of America remains the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people? I voted for the Affordable Care Act, and the Affordable Care Act has done some very important things. But we also have to understand that today, despite the ACA, 28 million people have no health insurance, and even more, including many of you, are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. All right? Our vision must be that healthcare in America must be a right, not a privilege. Secretary Clinton has made some important statements with regarding healthcare. Number one, we're going to have a public option available in every state in this country, which will significantly lower the cost of health insurance. Going to make Medicare possible for people 55 years of age or older. And further, on an issue that I work with the Secretary about, that I feel very strongly about, and that is working very importantly both in New Hampshire and Vermont, and that is a great expansion of community health centers. Right now in Vermont, I don't know the number here in New Hampshire, about 25% of our people are now getting their primary health care, dental care, mental health counseling, and low-cost prescription drugs at community health centers. And Secretary Clinton and I worked out an agreement, which is a big deal. We're going to double funding for community health centers. Double funding. Triple funding for the National Health Service Corps, so we get doctors and dentists and nurses and psychologists into medically underserved areas to take care of people who are in need. One of the, at a time when we shake our heads at the positions adopted by the Republican Party, I know that I can speak for Vermont, that there was a time when in Vermont we had Republicans who were really strong, intelligent people who were concerned about education. I know that seems an oxymoron here, but you had. I don't know how many of you know about, Vermont politics, but we had people like Bob Stafford, Jim Jeffords, George Aiken way back. These were guys, they were much more conservative than I was on a lot of issues on economics, but all of them, without exception, strong believers in the need to adequately fund education, protect our environment, and women's rights. Those days are now gone, and you have for the Republican Party. And you now have, and this is scary stuff above and beyond everything else that scares us about Republicans, is that you have a major political party which has turned its back on science regarding climate change. Now you all know that the debate is over within the scientific community. Except on Fox television, there is no more debate. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity, and it is already, not tomorrow, but today, causing massive problems all over this country. Communities on the East Coast or on the ocean are now being flooded. In California, a massive drought where they had to cut water consumption by 25%. Heat waves throughout Europe and India. We have got to do the right thing, which is to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and to tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the survival of this planet. Now, What's the best way forward? I believe in a tax on carbon. Other people don't. Fine. All right, we can have that argument, but you cannot, in the year 2016, reject the science. And the Republican Party today, with their candidate for president, Donald Trump, is doing just that. Rejecting the science of climate change. And it is inconceivable to me, and I suspect people throughout the world, that we could have a president of the United States who rejects science with regard to this global crisis. Secretary Clinton is going to be very strong on this issue. She is going to invest heavily in energy efficiency and sustainable energy, and that is exactly what we have got to do. There is another issue where I worked with Secretary Clinton on during the campaign. She had a strong approach, but a somewhat different approach than I did to the crisis in terms of affordable college education. And here's the bottom line on this one, and it's important everybody understands it. We are living in a very, very competitive global economy. We will not do well unless we have the best educated workforce in the world. There was a time, not so many years ago, where in America we had the highest percentage of college graduates of any country on earth. That is not the case today, and in fact, many other countries are moving far ahead of us in terms of the percentage of their young people that are getting a higher education. We have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Secretary Clinton and I agreed on a proposal, didn't go quite as far as I wanted, but every family in America, which is about 83% of families with incomes of $125,000 or less, will be able to send their kids to public colleges or universities tuition free. That is a big deal. That is a really big deal. And what that does, it tells every kid in New Hampshire and Vermont who comes from a low-income or working-class family, as I did. My parents never went to college. I want those kids to know that if they study hard, if they do well in school, regardless of their income, they will be able to get a college education and will be able to make it into the middle class. Secretary Clinton also has a very significant proposal to deal with the other crisis related, which is student debt. How many of you are dealing with student debt right here? There you go. I mean, it's the same response that I got all over this country. Every place I went, you have people paying 6, 7, 8% interest rates on their debt. Talked to a young doctor in Vermont, graduated medical school, $300,000 in debt. Dentist in Iowa, $400,000 in debt. Kids graduating college, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in debt. Think about it. Young people want to go out and start their lives. They don't want to spend their lives paying off these debts. Can't get married, can't have kids, can't get a house. All right? Secretary Clinton and I both agree that people who have student debt should be able to refinance that debt at the lowest interest rates you can find. You can go out and get a car, pay 2% on a car or less. There's no reason why anybody should be paying 7, 8% interest rates on student debt year after year after year. So we're going to change that. Now, what this campaign is ultimately about, and it's important because the media doesn't do this, and we have got to be a little bit smarter than the media. What the media thinks is that a campaign is about this person or that person. It's not. What a campaign is about, it's not about the candidates, not about Trump, not about Clinton, not about Bernie Sanders. The campaign is about you and your needs and the needs of the American people. So what we have got got to be it's a little bit smarter than some of the media. Instead of seeing all the personal attacks that are flying around, we've got to ask ourselves a very simple question. What are the important issues facing America, and what are the positions of the candidates on those issues? That's what the question is about. And on that basis, if you look at a campaign on that basis, the answer is 100% clear that on every issue, Hillary Clinton is the superior candidate, hands down. Let me just run right through them. Again, this won't get on TV, but it's important that we look at these issues, okay? One of the great concerns that I have right now, and it troubles me immensely, media doesn't talk about it virtually at all, especially TV, and that is that as a result of Citizens United, billionaires and corporations are now buying the United States government. That's what Maggie Hassan is going to be up against here. That's what Ted Strickland is up against. In Ohio, it's a moderate-sized state, not the biggest, not the smallest. The billionaires are going to spend, we think, about $100 million to buy that seat. So we got people in our country, in New Hampshire, in Vermont, put their lives on the line to defend our way of life, which is democracy. Democracy is a pretty big deal. It means that our country is not run by the King of England. It is not run by billionaires. It is run by ordinary Americans. One person, one vote. That's what democracy is about. It is not the Koch brothers buying elections. And that takes us to the United States Supreme Court, who by a 5-4 vote, one vote, decided that corporations are people and that billionaires could buy elections. What Hillary Clinton has said, and what I have said, and I think what most of you agree with, is that Citizens United will go down in history as one of the worst decisions ever made by a Supreme Court. It must be overturned. Donald Trump has said that he will appoint Supreme Court justices just like the majority are right now. And that means Citizens United remains. Hillary Clinton has said she will not appoint a justice who is not public about saying that Citizens United has got to be overturned. That is a huge difference. Donald Trump was on a Republican quote-unquote debate. I hesitate to call it a debate, but that's what they called it, in which he made a brilliant statement that wages in America are too high. Now, I guess if you are a billionaire, maybe you live in a certain world. Most people I know do not think that wages in America are too high. They think that wages in America are much too low. Hillary Clinton understands that the $7.25 minimum wage is a starvation wage. It must be raised to a living wage. Hillary Clinton understands that there is something fundamentally wrong in our country when women workers are making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. Country, women are standing up and they are saying we want the whole damn dollar, not 79 cents of it. And Hillary Clinton will lead the effort, and I will do my best in the Senate to make sure that finally in this country we have pay equity for women. And Hillary Clinton understands that our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, water systems, wastewater plants are collapsing all around us. And that we need to rebuild that infrastructure, and that when we do that, we create millions of decent paying jobs. Think of an America where we have one of the best high-speed rail systems in the world, not one of the slowest. I know this is a radical, unimaginable idea, but think about riding down a road and not falling into a pothole. I know that requires very big thinking. That's pretty radical, I know. I was, where it becomes not funny, I was in Flint, Michigan during the campaign and met very privately with parents of kids who were impacted by the lead in the water. And it was one of the most painful meetings that I had ever gone to in my life, to talk to parents whose kids are suffering from cognitive problems as a result of the lead in the water. But it is not just Flint, Michigan. There are hundreds of communities all over America where communities are struggling with clean and decent drinking water. This is America. People should not have to worry about the quality of the water they drink when they turn their faucet on. And that is why together we are going to rebuild this crumbling infrastructure and put millions of people back to work doing that. Now, when we talk about why the middle class is shrinking, why we have so many people living in poverty, and why the gap between the rich and everybody else is growing wider, we have got to take a hard look at our disastrous trade policies. And I'm talking about NAFTA and CAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China. And I am talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Secretary Clinton is on record as saying she opposes the TPP. She is right about that. And she is on record in saying that she will do what she can to make sure that that disastrous piece of legislation does not come to the floor of Congress in the lame duck session. We need a trade policy that represents the needs of working people, not just the CEOs of large corporations. Secretary Clinton understands that it is an international disgrace, something that we should be deeply ashamed about, that here in the United States we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. Think about it for a minute. You got communist China out there, 4 times our size, an authoritarian society, doesn't tolerate dissent very well. We got more people in jail than China does. We have a broken criminal justice system. It needs major reforms. Secretary Clinton understands that. Today we have 11 million undocumented people in this country. Many of them are working at some of the most difficult jobs in this country. They are picking the crops and the food that we are eating today. They're doing construction. They are working hard. We need, and Secretary Clinton understands that we need, comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. Now, I intend, as a United States Senator, to do everything that I can between now and Election Day to make certain that Donald Trump does not become the next president of the United States. And I will tell you why. And I say this without any joy. I am not the world's most partisan person, and I have friends who are Republicans who are very decent people who disagree with me, and that's fine. But the truth is, if you look at Donald Trump's record, what you find is this guy is a pathological liar. And what that means, I'm not talking about a little fib here, and I'm not talking about stretching the truth there. I'm talking about him coming up with things in his own mind that do not exist. There are psychological definitions to that. Right? But that is dangerous. And furthermore, the media tries to determine what the position is. That's what we need to do. What is your position on this issue? It is very hard with Trump because he changes position every other day. You don't know what his position is. We cannot have a president of the United States who keeps changing his position every day, who has absolutely no core set of values other than what is good for Donald Trump. You know, no candidate is perfect. I'm not perfect. There's never been a perfect candidate. But a candidate who lies all of the time, blatantly, and is not embarrassed about it. He gets caught every day. You would think there'll be some shame. But apparently not in the case of Mr. Trump. I will vigorously oppose Trump, not just in addition because he wants to give huge tax breaks to billionaires like himself and wants to cut programs for working families, not just because he wants to end the Affordable Care Act and throw 20 million people who today have health insurance off of health insurance. I'm the ranking member of the Budget Committee, and we dealt with that issue in the Senate, and that's what the Senate Republicans did. And I said to the chairman and the others on the committee, tell me exactly what happens when you throw 20 million people off of health insurance. What happens to them? How many of them will die? How many of them will become much sicker than they should have become because they can't go to a doctor anymore? There is no answer. They have no answer. It is callous, it is ugly, and we will not allow them or Mr. Trump to do that. But my opposition to Trump goes beyond the fact that he refuses to recognize the reality of climate change. It goes beyond his willingness to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut programs for working people. My opposition in its strongest way to Trump is that he is making the cornerstone of his campaign, not economics, not healthcare, not the environment, not even, balance the budget. The essence of his campaign is bigotry. It is bigotry. It is trying to divide this country up. It is telling us that we are supposed to hate Muslims, we are supposed to hate Mexicans. If we're men, we're supposed to hate women. We're supposed to hate anybody who is different than we are. What I can tell you as the son of an immigrant is that, as most of you know, we are strongest when, in fact, we bring our people together. When black and white and Latino and Native Americans and Asian Americans, when gay and straight, when men and women, when we come together as one people, fighting to make sure that our government works for all of us, that is when we are strong. But with demagogues, and we can't credit Trump for being the first to do this, but he's not that smart. He picked it up elsewhere. But what demagogues have always done is avoid the real causation of problems and go scapegoating. You pick a group, a minority group, and you blame that group for all the problems facing the world. And when people are hurting, sometimes they fall for it. But we have got to be smarter than that. In New Hampshire, we've got to be smarter than that in Vermont. We have to understand that some Mexican-American picking tomatoes at $8 an hour is not the cause of the decline of the American middle class. So, brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. And it's not just making sure that Secretary Clinton is elected, it is also making sure that Governor Hassan is elected to the United States Senate. Now, what I can tell you with almost 100% certainty, that the day after the election, there will be one political party which will have 51 or 52 votes in the United States Senate, and one party will have 48 or 49 seats. In the United States Senate, it will come down to 1 or 2 seats, whether it's New Hampshire, or whether it's New Mexico, whether it's Pennsylvania, whether it's Ohio or Georgia, I don't know. But certainly New Hampshire is one of those states who will determine which political party controls the United States Senate. And let me be very clear as a senator, the party that controls the United States Senate plays an enormously important role in determining the future of this country. So we can have a party, we can allow the Republicans to retain control of the Senate, and then the discussion is not whether we raise the minimum wage, whether in fact we abolish the concept of the minimum wage. It's not whether we move aggressively on climate change, it's whether we even recognize the reality of climate change. It's not whether we raise wages for women, it is whether or not we continue to take away rights that women have fought for decades. So the party, and not everybody knows this, I understand. People look at these things from an individual point of view. But it goes beyond Maggie Hassan or Kelly Ayotte. It goes to which political party controls the United States, and that decision may well be in the hands of the voters of the state of New Hampshire. So I would ask all of you to give very serious consideration to working hard to make sure that Governor Hassan becomes your next United States Senator. And lastly, let me just say this, is that election days come and go, but the struggle for change takes place every single day. And I want you on this Labor Day to remember the struggle of American workers, those who stood up to corporate bosses, those who were beaten up, those who were jailed, some of them died to form unions. I want you to remember the struggle of women who went to jail and went on hunger strikes in order to make certain that women would not continue to be treated as second-class citizens in this country. And I want you all to recall the struggle of the civil rights movement, which has gone on and continues to go on to create the day in America where racism is ancient history and not part of our culture. And the struggle of the gay community who have stood up to make sure that in America people have the right to marry whoever they want, regardless of their gender. I would hope and ask you all very much that we have got to do everything we can to make sure that Hillary Clinton is elected president and Maggie Hassan is elected to the Senate. But on the day after the election, well, I'll give you a day off. 2 days after the election, we have got to continue the pressure. We have got to continue the grassroots mobilization to make sure that this country and our government works for all of us and not just the people on top, and to know that we can create a nation in which all of our people enjoy the benefits of justice. Thank you all very much. It seems that the breeze has blown in the next United States Senator from the state of New Hampshire, the candidate who is going to end Republican domination of the United States Senate. Please welcome Maggie Hassan.
And thank you so much for your support for my campaign. Throughout his career, Senator Sanders has been a champion for hardworking families. from his work to make college more affordable, to his efforts to combat climate change and protect our land, our air, and our water, his commitment to getting dark money out of politics, and his efforts to rein in big banks on Wall Street who make risky bets with our economy. Senator Sanders is a true champion for Granite Staters and American workers. And he has certainly helped energize people throughout New Hampshire and America in our fight to ensure that Washington looks out for middle-class families, not corporate special interests. I am truly honored to have his support, and with your help, I hope to work with him as a colleague in the United States Senate. Thank you, love you too. It is clear from the energy and passion here today that we are ready to fight to continue our progress and win up and down the ticket in November. Our progress is truly at risk in this election. In New Hampshire, we have worked together to build a stronger, more innovative future where education and small businesses drive job creation. We're helping innovative businesses start up and grow. We're providing a strong and comprehensive approach to the heroin and opioid epidemic. We froze tuition at our state universities for the first time in 25 years. And we lowered tuition at our community colleges. We expanded health coverage to nearly 50,000 hard-working Granite Staters. And we are seeing the progress all across our state. Our unemployment rate is now 2.9%, among the lowest in the country. And we have more people working today in New Hampshire than at any time in our state's history. A CNBC report ranked New Hampshire as the #1 state for business friendliness. And for the third year in a row, we were ranked the best state in the nation, based on more than a dozen measures of economic strength, safety of our communities, and quality of life. Folks, we have made progress for our people and our businesses by solving problems the New Hampshire way, working with Democrats, Republicans, and independents to get things done. And it's long past time for Washington to take the same approach. I'm running for the United States Senate because I want to see a future where everyone who works hard has an opportunity to get ahead and stay ahead, where our middle class is growing and thriving, and where all parents can once again feel confident that their children will have a better future. And I am proud to support Hillary Clinton for president because I know that she is fighting for these same priorities each and every day. But you know, our shared vision stands in stark contrast with what we see from Donald Trump and his supporter, Kelly Ayotte. It's not a surprise that Senator Ayotte supports Trump for president because at their core, they both agree on an agenda that will pull us backward. Ayotte and Trump are lockstep on defunding Planned Parenthood, overturning Roe v. Wade, and the unprecedented obstruction of the Supreme Court confirmation process. And Ayotte continues to support Trump despite the judgment of national security experts from both parties who have said that Trump presents a clear and present danger to the United States of America. Time and again in Washington, Senator Ayotte has consistently demonstrated that she puts her political party and corporate special interest backers ahead of Granite Staters. In fact, during her first 4 years in Washington, Senator Ayotte voted with the Koch brother agenda nearly 90% of the time. She has voted repeatedly for deep cuts to Pell Grants that would make college more expensive for thousands of New Hampshire students, while also voting against allowing young people to refinance their student loans. When it comes to our environment, she has fought to protect tax breaks for big oil, and she was the only New England senator to oppose critical clean water protections. And it's very disappointing that Senator Ayotte has voted against expanding background checks to prevent suspected terrorists from buying guns at gun shows and online. And she voted to turn Medicare into a voucher program and to raise the eligibility age, while opposing efforts to protect Social Security from benefit cuts. She's also been playing games, political games, with women's health. She supports allowing employers to deny women coverage for birth control and preventive care. And she has voted 6 times to defund Planned Parenthood. Senator Ayotte's record clearly shows that she doesn't stand with New Hampshire families and small businesses. And this fall, we must stand together and reject the Trump-Ayotte agenda and stand up for the priorities that matter to hard-working Granite Staters. Priorities like fighting to make college more affordable, combating climate change and protecting our land, air, and water, and keeping America safe. And we must stand together against corporate special interests to fight for an economy that works for everyone, to expand economic opportunity so that all Granite Staters are included in our shared economic success. So I look forward to seeing you all at house parties, phone banks, and campus kickoffs. Your grassroots work will make the difference as we engage with our fellow citizens, person to person, experience to experience, to get out every last vote. But you know, there is something more fundamental to grassroots work even than that. When we engage in our democracy, when we share our stories and learn the stories of our fellow citizens, we bring in more people from the margins and help build a more inclusive, more perfect union. We know that the work of inclusion, the work of change, is extraordinarily hard. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. But our forefathers wrote a Declaration of Independence where they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to the cause of an inclusive democracy where all are created equal. That's our job too. That's what's at stake. This election won't be easy, but we have proven before that we are up to the challenge. And by working together, we can and we will create a brighter future for all Granite Staters. Thank you all for your support, and onward to victory in November.